You know, I've been thinking about how life mirrors a fight, not in the chaotic sense, but in how we move through different rounds. In fighting, some rounds are won and some rounds are just meant to be survived. Some of the rounds do demand a lot of courage that sometimes we don't know we have. This idea actually hit me after I had an interview with a Muay Thai coach recently. And it reminded me of one of the greatest fighters ever, Floyd Money Mayweather. We all know the surface story of Floyd. He has discipline, he's consistent, and Floyd is pretty much undefeated in his fighting record. But here's the part that most people forget. I don't necessarily think Floyd won every round that he was in a fight for. And I realized something. Life works the exact same way. So today, I want to explore what it means to understand the round that you're in and how that changes the way you move on a day to day. This is your weekly reset. Let's dive in. A lot of us know Floyd Mayweather as a boxer and an entertainer, celebrity, whatever you want to call it. And I've always been fascinated by Floyd, man. Like, Floyd has this demeanor that when you walk around or you see him around, you just notice his confidence. Some might say arrogance, but the man has a fighting record that is unblemished. He never lost a fight. And in boxing terms, that's just impressive because if you know anything about fighting, you can get got like anytime. All it takes is somebody to strike you on a proper day in the right region of your jaw or your face or whatever, and boom, it's night night. Shout out to Steph Curry. And I've always been fascinated by how you can lose so many rounds but never actually lose the fight. That really had me thinking about, damn, like is really talented. Like, he's really good. And sometimes we don't really peep the amount of effort and time that people put into this on a day to day. So shout out to Floyd. And this had me thinking about life, how sometimes we mistakenly lose moments and assume that we've lost the whole fight. It's very important to be mindful that some losses in life are just losses for that season. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've lost the battle or the war of life. That's a war that you have to continue fighting every single day as long as you have the God given ability to breathe and show up in good health. So we have to learn to not treat temporary setbacks like permanent failures. I know for myself, I'm always so hard on myself when things are not going the right way. Like, we're so embedded in, if my life is not looking in a certain way, or if I'm not at this certain echelon of achievements or goals or visions or dreams, then I'm not really living life to the fullest. When in reality, sometimes you just got to go through those lessons, those L's, as people call them, for you to actually get back on your P's and Q's. You have to go through seasons where shit is going to be slow. It's not always going to be high ride, high wave all the time. So I think it's so important to understand like the difference between losing a round and losing a fight, because you can lose a round, but eventually you want to be able to build yourself up for the longevity of the rounds of the fight, which is the fight of life. So anything beyond that is just part of the game. And you got to take the punches as they come. And what really fascinates me about Floyd as well is, if you've ever watched a Floyd Mayweather fight, Floyd is very defensive. Like, he's very good at ducking punches. And I remember, like, when Floyd was peak boxing, like when he was fighting with De La Hoya and this other fighters, people would always mock his defense as a sign of weakness. But I always chose to see it as a sign of a good strategy, because what good is it to dive in to get punched when I can be good at ducking punches and, preserving my overall health? Because we all know one punch can really mess up your brain. So his defense was really good. And I urge you to just go on YouTube and type Floyd Mayweather defense. It's with any boxer, from any boxer's perspective, it's legit. It's legit. So I kind of started seeing that in life as Floyd was just trying to survive a round. And sometimes his opponents, even though they weren't ranked as high as him, they still had if you're a champion, you're going to get the best shot out of everyone. And that's what Floyd had to get every single night. So I equate that to life in a sense that you have to survive certain rounds with your defense. There's times in your life where you just have to stay standing, stay still, weather the storm, protect your peace, protect your energy, protect your stability, protect your identity, protect your reputation. You know, some rounds are not meant for shining, they're simply meant to survive. And if you survive those rounds, you give yourself a better chance in protecting yourself and going into the next round with a chance to win. So I think when you're in survival mode, it's very hard to see or realize that certain things you're not able to do them at the same level if you're going on the offense. Like there's certain seasons that will just require you to slow down, look within, then recalibrate and move forward. And sometimes protecting your peace looks different for everyone. Protecting your peace can be isolation, working on yourself, reconnecting with family, reconnecting with friends. There's no one formula for protecting yourself or when you're in your defense mode because that varies from person to person. And I generally don't like how society tries to blanket everything as if you go to the gym, if you meditate, if you stretch, if you pray, if you do XYZ, everything is going to be okay. No, it doesn't work for everybody like that. Just go with what works for you because you have your own unique set of experiences that other people don't. So that brings me to the attack rounds when you've defended yourself so long, you've been in survival mode for so long, and now it's time for you to go out there and roll some punches. You know, you could feel an energy shift when it comes to like punching because with punching, it's not so much about being coy, it's about getting out there and throwing, giving your best shot. And in boxing, typically, I think they have 12 rounds of fighting, if I'm not wrong. And when they go to protect themselves, once the round ends, they go to the corner, they drink water, they re up. Coach gives them feedback on what the other fighter is doing, yada, yada, yada. Same thing to life. Once you're in that slow season survival, you go back to the drawing board, you work on yourself, and then you come back for the later rounds of like, all right, cool, let's try get a knockout or let's try get some punches that will give us more points on the scoreboard. Those rounds require some sense of urgency. You know what I mean? And I think in life there also comes a moment when after you've gone through the cycle of being down and surviving and now you're ready to thrive, there comes a point where you have to start applying, you have to start creating, you have to start moving, you have to start speaking up. You have to start launching. You have to choose courage over comfort. You know, there's certain times in your life where just being quiet and being in the corner, standing in the corner is not going to cut it. You know, they always say closed mouths don't get fed. So this is in this season where you're supposed to be out there trying to go for the knockout. Don't hold back, you know? These moments in your life, maybe you've held back before. The season that is coming for you, don't hold back. What if that one swing actually shifts everything? Because my mantra is your life can change in one day. Your life can literally shift in one day. You don't necessarily need 1,000 that you need to stack days, but there's gonna come a day where everything will shift based on the amount of preparation that you have. And what good is it to find an opportunity and not be prepared? You know what I mean? Nobody goes into a fight without preparation. They have boot camps for fighting, like to prepare for the mental, physical, emotional toil that this one day will determine a winner or a loser. Same thing to life, you know? So there's definitely a cost in staying defensive when the moment calls for action. Sometimes it's very important to analyze and read the round effectively compared to where you're at in life because misalignment is one of those things that can cost you for real. Some people are trying to attack when their body and their nervous system is still in survival mode. You're not going to be sustainable. You'll start the thing, you launch the thing, you get into this environments where your body and your mind and your soul are not physically and mentally ready for. So you wonder why you always have this desire to do something, but to be honest, you just can't because you're not wired for that season. You didn't take the time to reconfigure yourself to attack that season in the right manner. That preparation is so important. And it doesn't have to be deep and long like the fighters do, but I think it's just so important to have an honest understanding of what round you're in because as I said, that misalignment can be very costly. So a big part of that is just being honest with the season of life that you're in. Does it call for defense or does it call for offense? Because when you attack when you're tired or when you defend when the opportunity is present to knock somebody out, maybe you're quitting halfway, you're misreading momentum. That's how you lose the fight, you know? And in this sense, losing the round does not necessarily mean losing the fight. But if you consistently stack up losing rounds, then you eventually are losing at the fight and each and every fight that you show up for. And that in turn hits your confidence and it hits the way you feel about yourself, which nobody wants that. So I think the season that you're in, you need to ask yourself, like, what needs do I have that need to shift if I want to finish the season strong? We're coming up to the end of 2025. There's a new season of 2026 coming up. What needs to shift if you want to finish this 2025 strong? So here's what I want to leave you with this week. I don't necessarily think you have to win every round. You just have to understand the one that you're in. Some seasons call for defense, call for attack. Both are part of the journey. And I want you to ask yourself, what round am I in right now? And how should I move because of it? If this message resonated, make sure you subscribe, share it with someone who might need it, and join me again for next week. Oops, not next week because we're taking a break till 2026. Personal life matters. Join me in 2026 January for weekly reset. I have other videos on the weekly reset. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Read, reflect, and rise.